The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett.
Everybody's talking about consciousness. Everybody wants that eternal kiss. Yeah, everyone's saying there's more than this. Everyone wants to follow their own bliss. Talking about one love, one blood, one light in everyone. One life, give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing
On the Expansion Zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are and of the vastness of human potentials. We explore the making of our world from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, along with practical living. You are reminded of the possibilities in creating personal change. So for an hour, we'll stimulate and expand the mind. Well, welcome once again to the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I am, of course, your host, Sonia Barrett, and as always, thank you for tuning in on this Monday. And it's great to be here. Of course, we are in the holiday season, the time of, I guess, depending on how you view it, it can be fun, and it can be, for some people, just ridiculous rushing around and chaos. But I know when you work in an office, I mean, it's definitely everywhere, you know, with people bringing in food, and you hardly want to do any work. But you do feel that energy, the energy of that in public and at home and all over. And that's regardless of how you might feel about the holiday season. And of course, before you know it, we're into 2020. But today I'd like to, I guess the topic, let's say, today we're going to talk about authenticating yourself. So we're going to talk about your personal, social, and commercial value. And this is going to be a discussion. And my guest, of course, or my wonderful discussion partner today is Lisa Scott, which many of you are familiar with. And, I thought this is a perfect time to talk about this. And there's so many layers to this as it relates to this time of year. And, of course, it's the Christmas season as we understand it to be. Now, early 19th century, from, everything that I've kind of looked at, early 19th century Christmas shopping was said to be more culinary than what we see today, than this kind of consumer gift giving that occurs at this time. So folks were shopping for food festivities prior to 1840s. And it's very different. We see something very different now. And, I really have had to do some questioning within my own self about it, and having raised my children and, I remember going Christmas shopping and so on. And, for me, I started asking myself, I'm like, why am I buying gifts for the kids or grandkids? Yes, it sounds kind of funny, but when you think about it, I'm thinking, what's my real reason for doing this? But anyway, so we're going to kind of chat about some of that and branding, symbols. Why are we so governed by these designer names, or and I'm talking about cars. I'm talking about anything that somebody has slapped their name on, and we suddenly end up using it to identify ourselves as part of our identity, in terms of our success, failure, how the world sees us. And I think that's real important, because I think that we're all a little bit affected in some way even if we don't notice it, some way, some subtle way, there is something going on there. This stuff is really wild. So without going any further, because I want to be able to chat with Lisa about this, just to remind you who Lisa is, Lisa Scott is a metaphysician, author, speaker, and blogger, as seen in Huffington Post and Mind Body Network. Lisa is the creator of the process called Leverage Your Pain and Leverage Your Values, and specializes in helping women business owners clear emotional blocks to success. Lisa is also the author of the free ebook, When You've Tried Everything Except Yourself, 6 steps to move beyond your past experiences and programs and step into your own. Her website is lisascott.org. So, without further ado, Lisa, welcome back to the Expansion Zone.
Love being here. Thank you, Sonia. Thanks for having me. Love your audience. And love chatting with you as always.
Yes. Yeah, we love chatting with each other, and from what I'm understanding, I think the listeners have enjoyed it as well. But you heard what I was saying in the very beginning, about all of this at this time, and how people are left with either feeling sad or feeling down or feeling guilty for not really being able to meet a lot of this status quo, this expected. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking the last time, I think last year we, had a chat around the holiday time, and, it just reminds me of, what my experience was when I was younger. And can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Sonia?
we can.
Okay. Just reminds me of my experience when I was younger and how I felt like I was traumatized when Christmas time, occurred and all of this wonderful, experience was happening, and everybody, just the ambiance, the aura, how everybody's just so wonderful and happy. And then just right after, New Year, it's like everybody's back to their regularly scheduled program. And it was like, what is going on? Why is this happening? So, yeah, I definitely identify with this whole, the season that we're in. And it truly is a season, a pattern, there's just so much to it. So,
yes, and I like what you said about everybody goes back to their regular scheduled program, because it is. A lot of times, if you really examine it, it does have this vibe of like somebody turned on a switch, in everybody, and then it turns off and everybody just goes right back to the whatever the program is. And so one of the things, okay, moving into the whole shopping thing, but one of the things that over the years I've really examined, I've really looked at, and I think it's this value concept. The value concept is so significant because we see how we feel, or we see other people when you buy a luxury car, a Lexus, a Mercedes, a BMW, a Rolls Royce, whatever it is, a Tesla. But it's fascinating to me that someone slapped their name on something, Gucci, Prada, whatever. But somebody slapped their name on something and said, you know what? This is what this is worth. This is my value. For me, that was huge, because you start examining your own self and your own worth and your own value, because most people aren't going to think that anything they have could possibly have that kind of value. They could put that kind of monetary value, let's just say right now, on that. Mm-hmm. So I found that really fascinating. Identification.
It truly is fascinating. My family, we went to Maine over the Thanksgiving holiday, and we went to this restaurant, and in the restaurant they were selling these photographs. And we're looking at the pictures, and next to it, there's a price, and it was like $2,800 for this image that was sitting in there. And we were like, what? $2,800 for some rocks and some water? And, like, what are you kidding? But yeah, it's so true that, when you really, really stop and think about it and really stop and process the fact that somebody can slap a name on something, and all of a sudden, through, everybody just agrees, whomever that everybody is, but, they just agree and aren't paying any attention, or are, just like you said, comparing themselves and processing what is their own worth and value as opposed to or compared to this item or this thing that, they purchase. And what's even more interesting is the communication that's happening without words with all of this.
Yes, absolutely.
How you can go into a room of people and, those people, based on whether they have a mind in terms of, what's valuable to them, and then someone else enters that space that might not share the same, like-mindedness in terms of what people in the room deem as valuable. You can feel the energy. There's such a difference in energy between people with this. So you don't even have to talk, and you can feel this communication that's happening amongst people, and, these objects that we're determining, or somebody determined has a value or doesn't have value.
Well, and it's a lot of automatic assumptions about that person if they walk in with a certain whatever it is, or if they're driving a certain car, and it's the mechanism. I say it's the mechanism that people have been taught socially to use as a barometer to measure their position in life. And I think, again, if we're all honest with ourselves, we have all felt that in some way or another, and it's automatic. It's just automatic that you this is how deep this programming is, that you feel a certain way when you're driving a certain car or whatever. But I think it's great to question it. I'm not saying don't have these things, but
right?
Yeah, but it's let's just look at for the individual on a personal level. I think it's important to just see what your core beliefs are about yourself and the value that you place on yourself.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I posed the question in one of my groups, my group, Go Back and Heal Little You. And I posed the question, what did little you perceive success as being, when you were a young person compared to, or little you rather, compared to who you are now? And it was very interesting that almost everyone who answered the question, when they were little, their idea of success were the outward things, those things that you could buy or, material things. And as they got older, the value became an inward value. Like they were talking about things like family and peace and, stuff like that. And I said, wow, this is so interesting. I wonder if everybody's picking up on this, how, when they were younger, because I guess you really didn't have much of an opportunity to, decipher this for yourself, what society was basically telling you, what things were, what things were worth. But over time, if you're being introspective at all, perhaps your idea is going to change. But, the majority of people that answered the question in this group, their idea had changed. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting because what I see is I see that part too. When you ask and somebody will say, yes, this is what they, want now, his family is more important to them. Mm-hmm. And I think because much of this is so subtle that I tend to find that there is still quietly underlying things, beliefs that are there, and you don't notice unless something gets yanked away from you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, when something gets pulled, that's when if you're going to be honest with yourself, you're going to notice. It's sort of like money, having money. Money is, that's such an interesting tool. But having money in your pocket, when somebody has money in their pocket, man, they're on top of the world, right? You're on top of the world, particularly if you weren't feeling on top of the world before that, but then now you have some money, you're on top of the world. And as that money starts to dwindle, the old self just starts coming back.
Yep. Exactly. It's so true. If people were really paying attention, that connection is definitely like, oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. You're on top of the world when you have all this money in your pocket. And just like you're saying, as it's dwindling, you can feel your vibration going down with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, wow,
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And, particularly, I think that kind of response, particular for people who maybe they weren't born wealthy, and you acquire some money, and it's all relative as to, what makes you feel good. For somebody who has had nothing, $100 in their pocket could be like, $10,000. So it just depends. But the whole idea is how we are controlled to some degree then by these emotions, that has been sort of driven home to us. And not saying you don't need to have money. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is looking at the deep roots that are there, of the regulation then or regulating of society, with all of these various programs and identity and so on and so forth. It's very big.
Well, absolutely. I found myself processing something today, like earlier today, and it had to do with money. And as I was, feeling my way through the whole process and noticed my own energy, regarding what I was processing, what came to me was, oh my goodness, this is a storyline that I'm attached to. This is an actual full-blown storyline that I'm attached to, and I'm allowed to let this go also. And when I thought about it, I, really understood that I was allowed to let that go as well as other things that might have come, easier to let go of. I could just feel my heart just open and just such a weight lifting off of me. Now, even though I don't have all the answers, and this is, I think, a big, thing for us to pay attention to, is even though we don't have all the answers to something that we might want to let go of because you don't want to any longer have that control, whether you're in high vibration or low vibration, if you're paying attention, even though you might not have all the answers, just being aware is amazing, because now you can stop and really consciously think about this. And like I said, today for myself, I was like, wow, it's like bringing to your conscious awareness your ability to allow something to, your ability to allow yourself to let go of something. It is huge. It's huge when you have not been previously aware of it.
Absolutely. And, speaking of that, this kind of leads me into this, but looking at the Christmas holidays, and you get people who are down because, family isn't there, or they have we have these stored memories of the holidays or Christmas with family when maybe things were more alive. In my case, yes, everybody was alive, then, and you had these wonderful family gatherings and stuff. Well, for some people, the holidays they're not that anymore, and they have a hard time coping with that, and they can't wait for it to be over. So this is what I found when I was digging into a few things today, and I really like this. It says, for Christmas, a lot of old memories, but it says here, memory, and this is by a professor, memory is a story you never stop telling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like it kind of brings it home. It's a story you never stop telling yourself. And it's not just that you're telling yourself this story, but we're talking about the wiring now, the chemical wiring. We're talking about the neurons. We're talking about, patterns. We're talking about how the brain is actually wired to these particular stories. So when somebody starts to feel really down around the holidays, you can really kind of understand it more, that it's like this chemical, to some degree, yes, this chemical reaction that's happening. They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the season passes, and then it gets to go away because the season triggers these memories, the smells, the sounds. It's just fascinating, our design.
Yeah, like an addiction, and just, oh my goodness, it's amazing that you would bring that up, and it's, all in line with what we're talking about, because along with what I was just sharing, that was a part, what you're talking about, the memories, was a part of my processing also with the holiday season. And a question, arose that was like, do you realize that you can create something completely different?
Yes.
Like, do you realize that today is actually a brand new day? And even though, yes, you have the holiday season, do you realize that you can create in this season and every day? But, specifically we're talking about the holidays. But are we even aware that we can create something completely new, something completely, in line? Because perhaps, even when we're growing up, we are going by the tradition of our parents, the tradition of our family, which is helping to create these memories. So a lot of times we didn't even have the opportunity to, create our own tradition, so to speak, or whatever memories we're going to have. But just like I was saying earlier, this major awareness just came over me, like, I can create this to be anything I want it to be. And it's not just the words. So I'm thinking about what you're saying in terms of, the memories and the neurons and the triggering and all of that. I really mean, like, when you are, packing up and you're leaving one place and going somewhere else, and you're not going to take the old baggage, and you're going to, unload the old baggage to make that, make it light for the trip, or not take it. You're making a decision about what you're going to take and what you're not going to take. And you can allow yourself to open a whole nother door and not take anything that look like anything from the past, if you desire that. I just think it's amazing, because as I process that, I can feel the neurons detaching. Like, that's me. I process feelings, so I can feel it. I can feel the letting go of, these memories and stuff like that, in order to allow that space for me to decide what I'm going to do. I just think it's a beautiful thing.
And I think that you somehow, from where you are you located again? I forgot.
I'm in southeast New Jersey, near Atlantic City.
Okay. So I think somehow you spied in on my notes, because because one of the things you jumped ahead, Lisa, because one of the things that I really was going to bring home to the audience was, and I'm just going to read this little note as I wrote it: make this season new for you.
Wow.
On your own terms, not just based on old memories of what was. Isn't that fascinating?
Oh, my
yes,
goodness.
That's what I had written here. And then I followed it up with the fact that perhaps this is part of, when we say the magic of the season, maybe that's it. It's to be able to recreate your own reality of the season. Isn't that profound? Now, Lisa and I did not talk about this.
Nope.
We did not talk about this.
No, we did not.
Isn't that?
Oh my
I love it.
goodness.
I
But
absolutely
you know
love
what
it.
you're proving? You know what you're proving in that, that we did not talk about it, is that it's okay to let go of the memories, because in the present tense moment, we're so connected to everything. All of us are so connected to everything that we don't have to have that feeling of loss, like we're going to lose something if we let go of something. Because being in the present tense moment, look at how we were able to connect the way that we did, having not talked about this at all. But we're not missing a beat in terms of what this present tense moment has to offer in terms of it being a present like this. And I think that people, perhaps, I know I certainly have, letting go of a memory, the first thing you're thinking is you're going to lose something. You're so keyed in on the memory of, what it was, not realizing or allowing the opportunity for what this moment has to offer. We can't possibly fathom what this moment has to offer us.
Absolutely. I think people hang on. It's almost like a betrayal to the memory. That's what came to me. It's like, yes, it's like betrayal to the memory. And of course, we do it with a lot of things. We said we can't let us not forget, but we're not realizing what that actually means and all that comes with hanging on to memories that can only exist if we maintain a certain belief system or behavior or actions. That's the only way that they can exist. So this goes much deeper, and it's giving ourselves permission to release them. Not, we're not saying they're good or bad. We're just saying they no longer serve you, because you don't have to have that commitment to it where you're going to be down, you're going to be sad, you don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm. And even allowing yourself to, let go and be in the present. You're just like we were talking in the very beginning about the vibe that you get when you walk into a room and people are like-minded in their, value of, certain possessions and stuff like that. It's the same thing when a person is in the present moment. Just that feeling that you yourself walk in a room with allows other people, even though they might not even understand it or understand, anything about the vibe that you're bringing. They just know it's different and it's, it's present, and I just feel, for lack of another word to assign to it, I'll say I think it's very loving, because when you're present with someone and you're not holding on to a memory, you're giving them the gift of seeing a person and that the scenario, the circumstance for what it is right now. And I think that it can grow and expand from there and not be limited to like you said, if we're going to hold on to something, then everything about us has to remain the same as well in order to hold on to that. And look at the limitation of that. There's such limitation in that. But in being in the present moment and allowing yourself to be in that moment and, allowing or, speaking to someone and really being present, because you're not holding on to who you perceive that they were last year or, all of that. It's a gift to another individual as well. It's a gift to a scenario, a circumstance. It's just a gift all the way around.
Oh, it's an amazing gift, and it is a beautiful science. I mean, so what we're saying, we're not just, just as they say, just throwing stuff off the top of our heads in the sense of it makes no sense, no deep sense, but there's a science to it. And what's the science that lets you know this? The fact that our bodies aren't even the same. It's changing all the time. The subatomic particles are constantly changing. We are just, generating anew. So it's not even the same body that when you were born with. It's constantly actually changing. And so if that is the case, then that means that we have the opportunity to change our minds as well. to bring in new concepts about reality. And again, from everything you're saying, Lisa, and everything I've said, it's a reminder that the life that we're living in this moment is built on those old memories, and attachments to old memories, old beliefs, all of that. That is what we're living on, is that. And so that's why life seems to not change for some people. I think it's really important that we examine that. Tell the truth to ourselves.
I'll give an example that is like everyday, something that a person can pay attention to in terms of, has something shifted in you that is not what it once was? Because my husband and I are driving back from Maine, and we were going through certain areas that were very slushy and, sleet and snow and all of this. And so he had to drive. Well, everyone should have been driving very carefully because the salt trucks had not been out yet to salt the roads. So this vehicle was behind my husband, and it was flashing its lights, and my husband didn't notice till like the last minute. And he didn't move out of the lane, so the gentleman, quick enough for the other gentleman. And so he went around my husband, speeding past my husband, but I happened to notice he gave my husband the middle finger, right? He gave my husband the middle finger. Now, typically, that would have either jarred me or made me angry. And I'm sitting there like, oh, wow, he just gave my husband the middle finger. And I never said anything to my husband about it either, because that could have been a whole other ball.
Oh, I know how that works.
My point is that I actually sat back and observed the whole scenario like, wow, we really don't have to respond to things at all.
Yeah, reacting. Yeah, we react.
I mean? And I just thought about, I'm connecting all of this to the familiarity of who we are to ourselves, and people possibly asking themselves, well, who am I if I don't do this? Who am I if I don't react the way I always have? Who am I if I don't worry about the things I've always worried about? Who am I? That's like a deep question. And the answer is, you're still you. You're you. you're you, know? Because when the guy went by, and I just kind of smirked, but it was so profound to me, Sonia, because I remembered how I might have responded in the past. And this response that I gave was nothing like what I would have done. And the icing on the cake is I didn't even tell my husband about it, so he didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, it's true, because generally it's like, can you believe that? Yeah, I want to talk about the this automatic behavior and reaction a bit more, but I think what we're going to do right now is probably take a quick station break, and then when we come back, we'll follow up with more wonderful tips for, hey, living the authentic you. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Lisa Garr, inviting you to join me every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock for The Aware Show as we continue to bring you cutting-edge interviews about health, spirituality, and self-awareness. That's every Wednesday and Thursday, 1 o'clock on The Aware Show.
And we are back. And of course, you're tuned in to KPFK at 90.7 FM in Southern California, and streaming live at kpfk.org. I am chatting with Lisa Scott. We are having a discussion about what makes us tick, particularly around the holiday, and all the triggers and memories, and the ability to make some changes to be what we really want to be or choose to be. Before diving in a bit more, I'm just going to tell you real briefly here. In January, actually, I am hosting a 6-part webinar workshop, and it's called The Natural Science of the Path Inward. And it begins January 11th. And you can find out the details on this. Let me tell you, this is definite. It's cutting edge. It's different. So visit therealsoniabarrett.com and click on events and click on all workshops, and you'll see it. It's The Natural Science of the Path Inward, and it's a 6-part webinar workshop series. So wherever you are in the world, you can participate, and it begins in January. So I'm looking forward to that. But getting back to, this automated behavior, because a lot of that is, what you were saying, Lisa, it is automated. And I think that normally the reaction, because we tend to react to people on the freeway, on the roads, anywhere. It's like we've got to make sure that everybody knows that they can't get one over on us. I don't even know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What exactly is?
Yeah, we need to put you on notice like right away. Yeah. Even though you can't really hear what the person is saying. And when you said that, it took me back to a moment some years ago, and let me add years ago, right? It was some years ago. And I've never been so mad before being on the freeway. I was so angry. And I think there was traffic and somebody, this guy was driving. And it's like if he could have driven over the top of my car, he would have. There was really nowhere to go. And I was so mad that I got turned down the window and I stuck my head out. It was on the freeway because the traffic was like not moving. And I went off and uttered some choice words that I don't even use. Mm-hmm. And I heard myself, and let's put it this way. I was so mad that if the guy had got out and he was 10 feet tall, I would have taken him. And I'm like 5'2" for the audience. 5'2". I was like ready to throw down. And then you step back and I go, oh my goodness, what was that all about? You catch yourself.
Yes. Yes, you do. Well, some people do.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? I mean, I was like embarrassed. I was the only person in the car, but I just like a turtle, you just went back in my shell. It was like, oh man.
Oh my goodness.
God, that wasn't on video.
Yeah, that automatic response. That is something else.
For no reason, for no real reason. It's like pointless. But also, I just want to remind people, as I said before, the triggers, the smell of maybe something baking, and our whole sensory system is so profound how it triggers memories and, certain behaviors and sounds. Particular because we're talking around the holiday. Really interesting. So, yeah, just pay attention to that and know that you do have control over the response. Now, the response can be different. Like, okay, that was a great memory, as opposed to, well, nobody's here anymore. I miss all these people. If we find a way to turn that into something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I am around a lot of, different people, in the office that I work in, and you see, the tradition of every year this person does this, like clockwork. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every year this person brings in chocolate covered pretzels, and every year this one does it, and just like clockwork, here they come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I think it offers people such an opportunity. It certainly has offered me one to, just like you said, to pay attention to those sensory triggers that happen, just like the smells. And my big thing, I love me some tiny little twinkle lights. You give me those little twinkle lights, those little tiny little white lights all over the place, and I'm in some type of little heaven or something. And I don't know where it comes from, but I'm like, oh my goodness, because I'm an ambiance person. So You
Yeah.
just give me a room with those little lights in it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, or some candles, or and just like you were saying earlier, Sonia, it's not that we're saying that you can't like what you like. We're just talking about being consciously aware of, just consciously aware, and that you don't have to be controlled by anything.
Right. You don't have to be sucked in, controlled by it, live in that space of, whatever. Particularly if you're having a time with the holidays and you're feeling down and all of that. You just have to look on and go, what does this really mean? Where is this coming from? As opposed to letting this automatic program run, because we do, for most people can choose. I'm not talking people who are lost in depression from way before the holidays. That's
right.
That's a whole other process right there. That's a whole other show, as they say. But we're talking people that are particularly triggered by the holidays. And I still want to go back to this value thing, because to me, I still find it so interesting that you can put your name on like some shoes or whatever, and these shoes can cost $2,000. I'm not saying they're not well made. They're well made, but the name is what sells it. $2,000 or $1,500 or $800 or some jeans. Was it True Religion or one of them? $800, $900, and yet I am still not saying don't sell it for that price because somebody's buying it.
Right.
I'm just fascinated by the fact that you can put your name on something or put a particular name. That's what just fascinates me over the years. I'm like, wow, that is amazing that you decided that this is what you're worth. So I'm asking everybody else, what is the value that you place on yourself, as opposed to looking at these folks and going, yeah, well, they can do that. Because that's the concept. That's the processing that we have. Oh, yeah, well, it's them. They can do that. Well, why? Those are the questions I think you have to ask for, deeper questions for yourself.
Absolutely, and it's all a part of the programming that we were growing up with, the things that were being said and not being said, what society is, and I love, again, the opportunity to stop and ask yourself, well, first of all, who said that? And do they
who made it law?
Do they really matter in terms of what I value?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't need to have any of this to qualify yourself, because that's, again, a lot of this programming is about self-value and qualifying yourself. And these things that I'm talking about are the barometers, the mechanisms that we've socially been taught to use to create value and to qualify ourselves. Even when you say, you know what, I'm not interested in those things. That's for these other people. I'm just over here and I'm just collecting, my little check. The fact that we say those things lets me know that you are using those two tools to qualify and validate yourself. So it's very subtle.
Yeah, very interesting. Absolutely.
It's
absolutely.
Yeah, all just very subtle behaviors. Yeah, so the question is, what do we do now? What does an individual do going into this new cycle, this new 2020 cycle? This information that we're sharing, you can very well use it to make changes, go into this year differently. What do the people usually do? The New Year's resolutions, that's sort of automated too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, Sonia, what do you do to to process this information?
What do I do to process this information?
Yeah, I know you do it regularly. But,
I don't even know that I do, because I don't even feel that way. I don't even feel that way. I'm just moving into each next moment. And I've had times even last year where I couldn't, I'm like, is Christmas over? Did it happen already? I'm like, is Christmas done yet? So it's weird.
You sound like me with because I was talking to my family about the mail that's coming now because I'm almost 50 and I pay no attention to my age at all. I always have to ask my husband how old I am because he's a year older. And so this Medicare mail is coming through. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this must be a mistake. Like, why do they keep sending me this mail? Like, my mother happened to mention something about Medicare and something about a supplemental insurance or something. And I said, are you serious? Like, I didn't know that they sent. I'm not paying any attention whatsoever to this whole process. So when this is coming through the mail, I take it and throw it in the trash because I'm like, it has my name on it, but I don't understand why. And I look at it and I'm like, what is this? But when she said, Lisa, well, you're almost 50. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they send you information like when you're almost 50?
You're
so
like, what?
I don't pay any attention, and I was just throwing it right in the trash.
I understand. So. Well, yeah, there's AARP as well. I mean, the fact is there's this whole treadmill. I don't even know what else to call it, but there's this whole cycle that we are on of sort of regulated as to what next. You know, what's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
There you go.
So human beings are just sort of led that way, and I think it's so automatic that most people don't notice it. It's just part of the process because people go, "Oh, you know, we're getting up there," and it's like, well, "Getting up where? Where exactly?
Yeah,
Where's that? Where's
where
that?"
Are we getting up? Like, oh my
yeah.
goodness.
But it's all a tremendous amount of automatic behavior, which is basically what I wanted to point out today. And, for people who are wanting to, start a business, going to business, that's something that I like to talk about as well. I like to point out this idea of value when people say that they want to go into business. What are you worth to yourself? What is your services worth? What is the value that you put on what you can provide? And you have to be okay with that. But when you start making this comparison, when you start looking on at these other folks, how they felt fine about it, but you're programmed to not feel fine about charging a certain amount of money. It's not okay for you.
Mm-hmm. That is so, so true. When you start, looking outside of yourself and comparing yourself to others, you start to question your own, worth and value and all of that. And just like you said, all of a sudden you're not okay anymore. And I think that there's such a great value in people, if they're going to start a business, to take their time and really, be paying attention to what is it that they really want to be doing, that they themselves value doing, versus, oh, well, let me go over here and just do this because I know that, that's something that I can do. Just because we can do it doesn't mean, we're passionate about it, or it's something that's going to remain something, 5 years from now that you're going to want to put yourself into. I just think there's a great deal to be said for taking your time and doing what is natural. To me, natural of you. Like when I watch you and what you're doing, it's so natural. It just comes out of you like an appendage. It's a part of you, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's really, really important because people are sort of taught to do things based on a lot of times how much money they'll make. What's your passion? And another thing that I'd like to say is don't let other folks stop you from doing what you want to do, what you want to try. It's not about whether this idea of failing. And, I do feel that if there was such a thing as failing, it would be to never have tried. Yes. What is it that you've always wanted to do? Why not? So what if it doesn't work from the standpoint of, what social success is? But to me, it's launching it. It's the idea of actually going ahead and finding out how you can actually make this happen. And I think that's really important going into 2020 and people who work that still want to try something else, to organize something else that they'd like to do. This life is all about trying your hand at pretty much anything that you feel passionate about, as you were saying, Lisa.
Yeah, and allowing yourself to change your mind.
Yes.
Allowing yourself to change your mind, because just like you were saying, if you try something out and it doesn't work, it's a data collection, to help you to better process something later on. It's not a failure. It's a learning. If you never had tried it at all, you wouldn't know, what works and what doesn't work in order to assist with, something else. So I think it's all just a part of the learning process.
Absolutely.
And if something is not working, then know that you can change your mind. You can do something else. You can, even move that much closer to what you're, so to speak, more aligned with, because I think that that's part of the, that process of when we're thinking that something's a mistake, we did something and it failed. I just think it's one step closer to you.
Oh, yes.
The actual you versus, something else you might have just jumped out there and tried doing.
Yes, it's like be flexible. Yeah, it's okay. It's like you are learning. You learned something from that particular experience. Even in working in corporate America, the skills that I learned, even though I was always like, oh, I don't want to be here, but the skills that were acquired there, I was able to apply it to my own things. And so life is a school. It's like everything we do is a school. It's a learning process. Lisa, I want to make sure that we're able to get your information and anything else that you'd like to give to our audience so that we don't run out of time and not give that information.
Absolutely. So I have my website at lisascott.org. As Sonia mentioned in the beginning, I have a free ebook. If anybody, you can stop by my website and get that free ebook when you've tried everything else except yourself. 6 steps to move beyond your past experiences and programs and step into your own. And I am very excited about a new YouTube channel that I have called Permission to Live in the End, where I'm sharing all of my life lessons in terms of manifesting, my manifesting experiences. Those are really something else. I have a couple of videos up right now. I just got started with that, but I'm really excited about that channel. And I think that's it. You look for me, Lisa Scott, Facebook.
And you provide coaching as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Leverage Your Pain is my signature program where I assist people to pay attention to their thoughts and how those thoughts are interacting inside of the body and how you can shift out of limiting beliefs and emotional blocks to success. So that is on my website at lisascott.org.
Yes, awesome. Yes, and there's so many people out there who do need someone to assist. Sometimes there's just so much going on in your mind that you don't know, and I've talked to, people like that, you don't know where to start. And,
exactly.
And so somebody helps you to sort of lay it all out, map it all out so that you can see, how to prioritize and what steps to take in moving into what your heart desires.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. Let's see. Oh, yes. I call this is mind games. Everything that we're talking about, being able to change your mind. Life is a series of it's mind games that we play with ourselves without realizing that that's what we're doing. And it's supported by what we see externally. And we create our stories from there. Yeah, these mind games are supported by these stories. So we want to remember all of these little things that we've been talking about, and see what your stories are, and what it feels like just to do something different. Meaning, change your mind on that feeling that you go through every maybe holiday where you feel down. Just see what that would feel like to change your mind on something. Anything else that you want to just add? Any other tip?
I'll just reiterate what you were saying, and what comes to mind for me is for people to just allow themselves the opportunity to pay attention to the mental contracts you signed. Those things that you have agreed with a long time ago, and those stories are still playing themselves out over and over again. It's so what? Whatever was happening in the past is fine, and you still have the opportunity to allow yourself to change your mind and live in the present moment and offer yourself the gift of the present moment.
Oh, I love that. Offer yourself the gift of the present moment. Man, that is so powerful, because that is something that we're not used to doing. We don't do present moment. It's almost like we're going, oh yeah, I don't do present moment. I do past and I do future, but I do not do present moment. Present moment just kind of shuts down all these other stories, because you can only contend with this particular moment. And, and just again, to piggyback off of what Lisa was saying, just remember, you're not betraying those memories. There's no betrayal there.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. Just it's just about giving yourself permission to go to being authentic, and not caring or worrying about the social programs and protocols and expectations, but what do I really want? And that's, ultimately the bottom line of it is to move into that space. And I know we're up on time now, so thank you so much, Lisa, as always, for being here. Thank you. And thanks to the listening audience. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks to our engineer, D'Angelo Jones. And yes, we're on YouTube as well. The archive is on YouTube and also at theexpansionzone.com. Do visit me on Facebook and social media. I'd love to hear your comments on all of that. And to find out more about me and all of my work, visit therealsoniabarrett.com. And as always, I remind you to live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.
Everyone, one life, give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing.